afternoon and welcome to our PFLAG Oklahoma City press conference. It's a press conference and a rally to say to Representative Sally Kearns that her comments about our gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender friends, allies, community, and family members that we are offended. We're delighted that you're here. We're going to start with the singing of our national anthem, and we're going to be accompanied by Nathaniel Batchelder of the Peace House. One other announcement. Please let me have your attention, please. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol have asked us not to display any signs, absolutely none. So we ask for your cooperation because we thank the state capitol for allowing us to use this room today. Thank you so much for your cooperation.
And our MC today, that is the Reverend Lois Newton Edwards, Assistant Pastor at Church of the Open Arms and the President of PFLAG of Oklahoma City. We're here today because of Sally Kern, but we're here because Lois organized this event. Yeah. If you have the song sheet of America the Beautiful, we're going to sing that now. Here we go, America the Beautiful. Oh, beautiful forsaken sky, forever waves of grain, o'er purple mountains, majesty of the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful forehead, who stirred in passion's strength, author of therefore freedom, across the wilderness. America, America, God shed His dazzling fall, confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law. Oh, beautiful for heroes true in liberating strife, who more than self their country love, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and every gain divine. Oh, beautiful for nature's dream that sees beyond the years, thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. And please during the news conference keep your voices quiet because every sound carries in this building. Thanks.
Amen. Thank you, Batchelder. Let's give Batch another hand. I'd like to start start with some introductions of the speakers for today. They are all impassioned, they are all speaking with prophetic voices, and we bring a message of love and unity, not one of condemnation. We're asking for a conversation with Representative Kern, not a confrontation. I am Lois Newton Edwards. I am the president of PFLAG Oklahoma City. I bring you greetings not only from our local chapter, but from our national office. We have two sister chapters in the state of Oklahoma, PFLAG Norman. KHAM is the president. And PFLAG Tulsa, Nancy McDonald is the president. Chapter is one of 500 PFLAG chapters across the country. We're represented in every state in America. We are very proud to stand today with our LGBT friends and community. PFLAG stands for Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. PFLAG promotes the health and well-being of gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgendered persons, their families and friends through support to cope with an adverse society. Somebody say amen. Amen. I'm a preacher. To enlighten an ill-informed public, say amen. Amen. To end discrimination and to secure equal civil rights. Somebody say, okay, let's get this started up here. Amen. That's why we're here today, to secure equal human rights. Parents, families, and friends of lesbians and gays provides opportunities for dialogue about sexual orientation and gender identity, and acts to create a society that is healthy and respectful of human diversity. Say amen, somebody. Amen. Our speakers for today in this order include, after I speak, we will hear from Rob Howard, who is the Executive Director of Cimarron Alliance Foundation, Oklahoma City. Laura A. Belmonte, Chair of Oklahomans for Equality, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Dr. Robin Myers, Pastor, Mayflower Congregational UCC Church, Oklahoma City. Connor Wilkinson, Vice President of PFLAG Oklahoma City, Co-Director of the Peace Institute. We've added one speaker, the Reverend Dr. Scott Jones of Cathedral of Hope. He's going to read a statement from Andrew Rice. And the Reverend James C. Shields will be our last speaker. He is a constituent in District 84, which is State Representative Sally Kern's district. Our speakers as follows. I will begin. I'm using for a subject today, drum majors for justice. My sisters and my brothers, I greet you today. As the president of PFLAG Oklahoma City, and as the assistant pastor of Church of the Open Arms UCC Oklahoma City, where the Reverend Dr. Kathy McCallie is our pastor. We are proud to stand today in solidarity with our beloved community, to say no to hatred, to bigotry, to intolerance, to prejudice, to discrimination. We are here to say yes to tolerance and to love and to respect and to radical inclusion. And we say that it's all about the love philosophy. You get it. I am deeply touched and inspired by the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, quintessential drum major for justice. He writes, I've decided I'm going to do battle for my philosophy. He says you ought to believe something in life, Believe that thing so fervently that you will stand until the end of time for those principles. Dr. King writes, I can't make myself believe that God wants me to hate. He said, I'm tired of violence. We too are tired of hatred and violence. We're here today because we have decided that we believe so fervently in the inherent worth and dignity of each of God's children, including our LGBT community, that we're willing to stand up and say, no more. I'm also here today to honor the memory of my transgender brother, sister. I grew up during the 1950s and the 60s. I know I don't look that old, but makeup is amazing. But I grew up hearing taunts, ridicule, harassment, very, very ugly words, not in my home because we loved everybody, but in our churches and in our communities and in our schools. And this kind of bigotry has lasted for too long. And so today, once more, we say no more to hatred. It causes absolutely too much pain. And so we're willing to stand today, and some of us might be repetitive, but I don't think the message of love can be repeated too often. And so I'm honored today to stand with each of the witnesses here who will tell their stories. I'm honored today to be in your presence, for each of you have made a personal sacrifice to be here, to be counted in the numbers. The Old Testament prophet Amos challenges us to stand up and be counted when an injustice occurs. And he writes, let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. And so today I want to see Amos's vision of justice roll down in this state legislature. I want his vision of justice to be like an ever-flowing stream throughout the state of Oklahoma, so that all of God's children, every one of us, will be counted, we will be respected, we will be cherished, we will be loved. Amen. About being a drum major for justice. He writes, yes, if you want to say that I was a drum major, say that I was a drum major for justice. Say that I was a drum major for righteousness. Say that I was a drum major for peace. In this city, on this day, this historic moment, we gather together to say that we want to be drum majors for peace, for justice, for righteousness. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. I'm Rob Howard, Executive Director of Cimarron Alliance Foundation. In October last year, 62-year-old Stephen Domer was abducted and brutally murdered simply because he was gay. In February of this year in California, 15-year-old Lawrence King was shot by a classmate simply because he was gay. In 2006, there were 7,722 hate crimes in the United States, 79 of them in Oklahoma. They were committed against our brothers and sisters whose skins are a different color, who go to the wrong church, who come from the wrong country, and who love somebody of the same sex. In the greatest, most free country in the world, how can this be so? The words of our national anthem conclude, "Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave." How brave is it for a lawmaker of our state to suggest that an entire community of her fellow citizens are a bigger threat than terrorism? How can Representative Kern sing about the land of the free and impugn another's religion? How can she swear to uphold the Constitution of this great country and say that not all religions are equal? On Friday, March 7th, we heard Representative Kern's hateful words. 11 days later, nearly 1 million people have heard them on YouTube and millions more on TV. It is words like hers that send a message to people who are motivated by hate. And here's what those hateful people hear. Black people, Jews and Muslims, people from Mexico, gay men and lesbians aren't as good as you. It's okay to call them names. It's okay to hurt them. It's okay to murder them. My friends, hateful speech leads to hate crimes just as surely as the sun rises tomorrow morning. And just as surely as the sun rises tomorrow morning, by the end of that day, there will be more than 24 hate crimes in our great country. But Representative Kern certainly has the right to say what she wants. The Constitution guarantees her that right, and Cimarron Alliance stands firmly behind the freedom of speech. But freedom of speech does not belong to Representative Kern alone. It belongs to us all. The lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community has the right to disagree publicly with Sally Kern, and in fact it is our moral imperative. In light of all these hate crimes, one every hour of every day, year after year, the Oklahoma legislature should pass an effective and comprehensive hate crimes law to protect all of the citizens of Oklahoma. Given that opportunity with 4 bills this session, the leadership chose to let those bills die in committee. We call on the legislature to bring those bills to the floor and to vote on them. We call on Representative Kern to apologize for her remarks, and we call on Speaker Bench to demand that she apologize and to condemn her remarks. They demean the legislature of this great state. In closing, I'd like to simply remind Representative Kern and Speaker Benj of the words of Jesus when asked which was the greatest commandment. He replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself." We are your neighbors.
President of Oklahomans for Equality, and I don't want to talk about a certain state legislature. No, I want to talk about the political realities Oklahoma's lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people face each and every day. For 30 years, LGBT Oklahomans have endured a relentless assault on our civil liberties. For 30 years, public figures ranging from former Miss Oklahoma Anita Bryant to State Representative Sally Kern have flogged the LGBT community from the pulpit, in the courts, and in this very building. Today we say enough. For ourselves, for our loved ones, and for the future of a better Oklahoma. At long last, we have reached the tipping point where thousands of fair-minded Oklahomans and hundreds of thousands of our allies from across the nation will no longer sit silently by as LGBT people are relegated to second-class citizenship. Today, we voice our determination to stop the generations-long tidal wave of LGBT Oklahomans who flee our state at out of fear, out of frustration, out of certainty that they will never be able to live safe, authentic lives here. Today, we prevail upon our elected representatives to change forever Oklahoma's abysmal record on LGBT equality. We call upon them to put Oklahoma in the ranks of the 20 states that have outlawed employment discrimination based on sexual orientation. We call upon them to pass a state hate crimes law that encompasses sexual orientation and gender identity. And that enhances penalties for all bias-related crimes. We call upon them to stop permitting school officials to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear while LGBT students are bullied and harassed. We call upon them to stop wasting Oklahoma's time demonizing the LGBT community and our brothers and sisters in the Hispanic and Muslim communities and start focusing on fixing our highways and bridges, improving healthcare and education, strengthening our economy, and ending political corruption. We know at least one of you is now listening. What about the rest of you?
I'm Robin Myers. When someone recorded Representative Sally Kern making vile homophobic comments at a recent Republican fundraiser, she thought no one would hear her but the hardcore faithful. Now it's another national embarrassment for Oklahoma, and her defense is as ludicrous as her tactics are shameful. That she is entitled to her opinion and that any and all anti-gay rhetoric is automatically labeled hate speech. It is frightening for me to consider that Sally Kern is an elected official doing the people's business and has no idea what the difference is between First Amendment freedoms of expression and hate speech. Or maybe she does know but doesn't care as long as it works. That's the way we've been doing politics in this country for a long time now. You find the enemy and then you use fear and loathing of the enemy to gain political advantage. That needs to stop on all fronts. I join with the GLBT community in saying to Representative Kern that the hardworking, patriotic, decent, law-abiding Oklahoma citizens who are gay or lesbian are not the enemy. So I stand in the People's House to express my outrage on behalf of all the religious communities in Oklahoma who are outraged at this incident and the idea that to be a Christian is automatically to be anti-gay. First, as painful as it is for me as a minister of the gospel to hear Representative Kern make the assumption that all Christians view homosexuality as a sin, she does indeed have that right, First Amendment right. A handful of passages in the Bible do indeed condemn homosexual activity as idolatrous, along with a long list of other prohibitions we now consider primitive, superstitious, and non-binding, like wearing clothing with two kinds of thread, which of course makes almost all of us in this room into sinners, and stoning to death a son who talks back to a father. That's in Leviticus. As the father of two sons, I've been tempted to take this passage. Thank God I never did. Those who wrote the Bible knew nothing about sexual orientation, however. And the ethic of love and compassion surely trumps dietary laws, women as the property of men, and the embrace of slavery, all of which are solid biblical principles. Yet again, Representative Kern has the First Amendment on her side if she chooses to be a selective biblical literalist. But my reason for standing before you today is more than just to talk about this from a religious standpoint. I want to talk to you about it from a language standpoint. Representative Kern insists that her words do not constitute hate speech, but that indeed she is being unfairly condemned for having an opinion to which she's entitled no matter how loathsome it is to the rest of us. But if Sally Kern does not know or understand what words do and how language functions to signal violence against the other, she needs to go back to school, but not back to teaching school. Three obvious and chilling reasons why her anti-gay tirade constitutes hate speech. Number one, she compares gays to terrorists and says they constitute an even greater threat to our nation than terrorists do. Never mind for a moment that there are gays and lesbians serving in the armed forces of this country, currently in harm's way in the fight against terrorism. Just think for a minute what this sordid analogy really means. Our president says about terrorists, we're killing them over there so we don't have to kill them here. If the appropriate response to a terrorist is to kill him or her, what then is the obvious response to someone worse than a terrorist? Number two, Kern talks about a homosexual agenda that targets children as young as 2. We all get it. Homosexuals are all pedophiles and can't be trusted around our children. The code of ethics in prison with regard to pedophiles is well known and widely shared in our society. If another prisoner kills a child molester, the attitude is, well, there's one less child molester. What then should we do with gays? Number 3, Kern compares homosexuality to a cancer in part of the body. It should not be ignored, she says, just because it's contained and located in your foot. We get it. Cancer spreads. And if you don't do something about it soon, it kills you. What then do we do when we find cancer in a part of our body? We cut it out. We eradicate it. We sometimes even amputate an infected limb, anything to protect the rest of the body. What then should we do with homosexuals if they are like cancer? Sally Kern is doing politics in a way that sickens many of us, sickens us. Whenever you signal violence against any group of human beings, as did the Nazis when they called the Jews vermin, then you are doing something reprehensible. If anyone said these things about white, Christian, heterosexual, Republican women and compared them to terrorists, pedophiles, and cancer, you can bet Sally Kern would call it hate speech. Now the question is, what shall we do? Silence is a form of complicity. If we do not condemn such hate speech from an elected public official, we essentially endorse it. If we do not say to the nation, which looks at Oklahoma and often sees repeated examples of ignorance and bigotry, then what are we saying? That we're proud of being ignorant and bigots? We talk about being a big league city. How about an effort to become big league human beings? The Speaker to condemn Representative Kern and the Governor and every conscientious member of this House to do the same. I call upon Representative Kern to apologize to all of us for speech that is unbecoming of an elected official and misrepresents the state of Oklahoma in a way that is deeply offensive. Thank you.
Wilkinson. I come today not to represent any organization, although I am a member of PFLAG, or to represent any church, although I am a Christian. Neither did I come to vilify anyone, even though I strongly disagree with the opinions expressed by Representative Kern. I came today as the mother of one of Oklahoma's kindest, most compassionate residents, my 21-year-old daughter, who also happens to be a lesbian. When she was in the 6th grade, I watched her slip into a depression that I couldn't understand. She cried herself to sleep many nights and couldn't tell me what was wrong. She gained 30 pounds. Her misery was obvious, but the reason for it was not. My sense of helplessness in the face of her distress was extremely difficult for me to bear. I'm so glad today to report that she ultimately grasped the reality of her adolescence, attracted to boys. The reason I'm happy is not because she's a lesbian, but because she's still with us. She did not choose, like so many others, to commit suicide or to run away because she was ashamed. I'm glad I was able to love her without judging her, without judging what was clearly not a choice for her, but a discovery. When I hear rhetoric that suggests that if only homosexuality were invisible, and if kids didn't know about homosexuality, then there wouldn't be any homosexuality, I know how untrue that is. I've heard the stories of too many parents who watched their children grow up and who knew their children's orientation even before they did. It's not a choice. People can't be recruited to be gay or straight. As I wrestled with the knowledge that my youngest child was gay, I looked deeply into myself. Could I choose to be gay? The answer to that question is no, I cannot. I am what I am. If straight people cannot choose to be gay, why do we insist on thinking that gay people can choose to be straight? And if one can choose to be gay, why would you? After hearing the stories in PFLAG of the agony of children who were rejected by their parents, thrown out of their churches and ridiculed by their classmates, I wonder, why do so many straight people think that anyone would choose such a life of rejection? I challenge all of our legislators in Oklahoma to move on to productive legislation that will improve the lives of all Oklahomans and stop trying to condemn and ostracize any Oklahoma citizen for their religion, their race, their nationality, their family composition, or for their sexual orientation. This gay community is made up of a lot of human beings who are our sons and daughters, our nieces, nephews, our parents, our siblings, and our friends. At your very best, you can pass legislation that recognizes and ensures their full legal and human rights, and at the very least, you can leave them to live their lives in peace.
I'm here today not to speak on my own behalf, but have been asked to read a statement by Senator Andrew Rice, who is home in bed with the stomach flu. Otherwise, he would be here with us today. Senator Rice writes, by resorting to inflammatory speech to make her point, Representative Kern not only hurts the targets of her remarks, homosexuals and nonviolent Islamic religious followers, but she also offends most Oklahomans who believe in fairness and decency. Having lost a brother in the World Trade Center on 9/11, it is offensive to me that she equates homosexuality with terrorism. As elected representatives in the Oklahoma State Legislature, we are each held to a higher standard in our public remarks. I wish Representative Kern would have avoided attacking millions of people for their religion or for who they love. I expect the Republican leadership of the House of Representatives to condemn her remarks.
I live in Representative Kern's legislative district, but she does not represent my views or beliefs or values in her statements to a recent small Republican gathering or her statements about gay and Islamic people following the public uproar. Representative Kern has a right to free speech. She has a right to her values, public and private. She has a right to speak to groups of men and women. She has a right to defend herself and her views. Each of us has those same rights. I think her rhetoric in her speaking got her into a lot of trouble. I think her fears got her into a lot of trouble. I hope she will now compose herself, make a conciliatory statement, invite the gay community to meet with her, apologize where she needs, and move about her legislative district with 10 or 8 listening sessions where she primarily listens to where people in her district want her to put her time and her energies. Representative Kern has made a number of statements that are fearful, that are lacking in tolerance, and that are too emotional for rational public discussion and discourse. Many of her statements are more of a crusade in a church than for her responsibilities with her public paid job of being fair, wise, and reasonable in making laws for our state and her legislative district, where she and I both live. It is easy to rebut her fearful statements about gay people and Muslim people. That's been done here today. What I want to do in my 3 minutes is to invite her, and at 10 minutes till 11, I went upstairs to her office, talked with her secretary to invite her to be here. We would protect her if she felt she needed protection. All of you would do that. All of us would do that for her. But that she had left the building already. So she is not here. But still, we want to invite her to come and join in discussion with gay people, with Islamic people, with all of the rest of us who don't happen to fit in one of the other of those categories, in free, open, and informed public discussion. That's the kind of discussion that's the heart of a democratic republic. Specifically, I want to invite her to hold a number of public sessions in District 84 where the fears people have about gay people and Muslim people can be talked about. I want her to invite gay and Muslim people to these sessions. Open and inclusive public discussion will help us all. Second, I took a letter, as I told you, and a copy of these remarks so she can see them, and wanted to invite her to be here. I'm sorry she is not here. It would be helpful to her, it would be helpful to us. Third, I want to invite her to the Interfaith National Day of Prayer and Reflection that will be here in the Capitol building on May 1 at early noontime, 11 a.m. In this rotunda, a lot of church citizens will gather as exclusive Christians to recognize the National Day of Prayer. After she has been at that time, I invite her to come to the South Steps, where there will be a more open time where interfaith prayers for people of every faith who want to be there or who have no faith want to be there to pray for their country, to pray for our country. I invite her to ask for a minute to include her public prayer for our country at that time. Representative Kern, I am sorry that you are so afraid. It is okay to be afraid of terrorists. All of us are. It is not okay to be afraid of gay people. Most of us are not. It is not okay to be afraid of Islamic people. Most of us are not. Representative Kern, in a much, much worse time than this, President Abraham Lincoln said to America, North and South, black and white, and of all political views and of all religious viewpoints, with malice toward none, with charity for all, let us proceed to bind up the wounds of the nation. I'm sure that you have received wounds. I know that you have inflicted some wounds. I hope you will find the courage and the grace to begin to help bind up the wounds of your legislative district, of this legislature, of our state, as well as your own. Thank you.
Speakers, and I'm going to invite the speakers to join me here at the podium as we prepare to close. I want to close with a statement from Howard Thurman, theologian, from Meditations of the Heart, and it's called If I Knew You. William Penn wrote, "Neither despise nor oppose that which thou dost not understand." He might have added, "nor approve what thou dost not understand." It is very easy to pretend that we understand what one does not understand. Often the degree to which we oppose a thing marks the degree to which we do not understand it. Sometimes we use our opposition to an idea to cover up our own ignorance. We express our dislike for things, sometimes for people, when we do not understand the things we pretend to dislike, when we do not know the people for whom we have the antagonism. And then he ends with these words that I think are prophetic. He says, "If I knew you and you knew me, and each of us could clearly see the divine inner light, the meaning of your heart and mine, I'm sure that we would differ less and clasp our hands in friendliness if you knew me and I knew you." I'm going to ask each of us to clasp the hand next to you in friendliness. We're going to close with the historic civil rights freedom song, "We Shall Overcome." Okay, here's protocol. Cross your arms like this.